Hello, hello. Welcome to another segment from the GSMC Wrestling Podcast, presented by GMC GS. God, GSMC. Sorry, guys. GSMC Podcast Network. We recently spoke about kind of NXT review, kind of a little bit about the AEW preview, and next we're going to talk about Mercedes Mone. Mercedes Mone's Monet. Money, which we all kind of want to talk to, exactly the reason why she's pronounced because it says Monet talks, kind of like money talks. So Monet told Variety that she still haven't kind of taken everything in yet. That she kind of felt like Stone Cold Steve Austin in her return, which is kind of cool. It kind of like reflects on her knowledge of the wrestling industry, because I know one of her main influences was Eddie Guerrero, the Gory Guerrero, kind of like the Guerrero family. But and I think still to this day, she goes up to the top rope and she does the frog splash. And I think every single time she has like a finisher, she kind of like puts them on her back, kind of like the gory bomb that Gory Guerrero used to use to defeat his opponents. But now she kind of like flips it around, and it's all in all looks pretty cool. It's always good to be innovative, especially when it comes to wrestling moves. You don't want to see things kind of go out of style, kind of like Shawn Michaels' super kick. Now you kind of see people super kicking people, and it doesn't really mean anything. But back in my day, when I saw someone do the super kick, you're like, "Oh my God, it's over! How is he gonna get up from that?" But nowadays, or like back in the '80s, where Hulkamania would just do the leg drop, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's a leg drop! No one can kick out of that." But nowadays, it's kind of just like a standard wrestling movie, and you don't make too much of a big deal out of it. But moving on. So the best thing about Mercedes Monet is that she was able to make her AEW debut at her hometown in Boston, which I kind of hinted at before. Like it was called Big Business. You had the boss, the CEO coming in, and it's the boss business work, kind of white collar, kind of thing, kind of playing into it. So I think that's the reason why they named it that special event that was going on. But she debuted in her hometown of Boston, which is pretty cool. That's kind of like a dream for anybody, joining the wrestling circuit. Or basically, what about like? Well, I don't know if it really pertains to like sports like NBA, baseball, hockey, football, because like you're constantly traveling, you're constantly coming back. It's kind of, I guess you can kind of compare it to if you're an NBA player and it's your birthday and you score shit like a bunch of points, and like it was like, oh, on his birthday, like he scores like 67 points or something like that. Honestly, I think that would be kind of be the best I can do to kind of equivocate, what I'm kind of talking about here. But so Eric Bischoff, former general manager of Monday Night Raw and one of the heads for WCW, said in a podcast that basically that the AEW, they gained 1 million viewers for one segment. For basically Sasha Banks. Um, and Mercedes Monet is constantly revolutionizing the women wrestling business. Either if it's in the ring or off the ring, you gotta like, it's crazy because if someone's gonna draw 1 million viewers, honestly, she should be the main event. She's like the Roman Reigns of AEW right now. Like, because last time I checked, um, and according to Forbes magazine a couple years ago, that Roman topped out around $5 million per year, kind of like what Sasha Banks is getting paid right now, or Mercedes Moné. Sorry, dang it. Um, she's main event caliber. She's also signed a huge contract, and the fact that she's back on cable television, that's actually a very, very, very big deal that she's back on cable television. Because, of course, you had her on New Japan Wrestling. She did a little bit of the independent circuit as soon as she left the WWE in 2022 in May. But those kind of things you have to pay for like an external kind of thing, kind of like a Peacock. But obviously, you have WWE SmackDown on Fox, and you have the WWE Raw on on the USA Network. But honestly, this is pretty huge. This is something that if you're in AEW creative or storylines or just like the script supervisor or the showrunner, the director, you're gonna want to show kind of like the best you have last. Kind of like, you kind of build it all up, kind of tease the segment a little bit, and then you kind of have the main event like right there. The question for AEW is trying to find a woman that can hang with like the Mercedes Mone kind of popularity there. Like I like Willow of Nightingale, but I don't know. Like they're kind of leading up to like a Tony Storm versus Mercedes Mone, which would be pretty badass. I would love to see that. But obviously, I think it's going to take time. I think if they give her a title opportunity right off the bat, fans are going to be kind of be like, "Oh, okay, she comes back from the WWE, and all of a sudden she's the best, and I don't like that." And it's just for ratings, guys. Come on, it's just for ratings. When it comes to wrestling shows, guess what? If the ratings aren't there, if the butts aren't in the seats, you're not selling merchandise, you're not selling tickets. Guess what? You're going to become something just like, and I'm not trying to put down these wrestling entities. Like you're gonna become like a TNA. You watch TNA, you watch the NWA, you watch Ring of Honor, you watch New Japan Wrestling, and you see probably like a crowd of like 1,000, 2,000 tops. But if you're like in AEW, which their main thing is they're going to fight at Wembley Stadium, and that's absolutely huge because that's like a huge sports complex. That's kind of like fighting at the Madison Square Garden equivalent to like European wrestling. So I don't know. For AEW, I think the acquisition of Mercedes Moné is going to be pretty big um, in that. So, like I said, she's only 32 years old, so she's kind of, she's still in her prime. And she shared why she chose AEW. And I quote, she said, "You can do so much more in AEW. You can do everything. So, this is the place for me to be." Kind of showing why, I don't know, kind of showing how AEW is a lot more different than WWE because WWE kind of has their own agenda and they kind of like it's like one of those things where kind of man, I don't want to like misspeak or I don't want to seem like belligerent or ignorant or anything like that, but the executives from WWE kind of tell you who you are and what you want to be. um because I think, oh man, I think I actually read this lately in like an article with Nick Nemeth, aka Dolph Ziggler, that WWE doesn't like to use people's real names. And you wonder why is that? Because they want to ensure that they have your character, and if you decide to leave WWE, guess what? You're gonna have to start fresh. Like, for example, Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks was such a household name, especially in the wrestling industry, that was consumed with WWE, NXT, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, etc., etc. But the moment she left, she had to switch her name to Mercedes Monet. And I got to be honest, I kind of overread some articles, and I kind of overlooked. Sorry, that was more of a better term. And it was like Mercedes Monet, and I was like, who the heck is Mercedes Monet, and why should I care? The moment I found out it was Sasha Banks, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy how somebody could be successful out of the WWE. And I'm not saying that that's true, but I'm just saying as I was brought up a WWF fan, WWE fan, everybody else, WCW, everything else was kind of like a side chick, you know what I mean? And like, if it's not WWE, you kind of, as a wrestling fan, kind of overlook it. And you kind of like, like, I'm not really going to pay attention to that. I think that's the reason why WWE, they control your name, they control your identity, and they kind of want, which is, and I'm not trying to speak bad upon the WWE. That's smart. That's smart business ethics wise. That's like letting go of like one of your better employees that you couldn't afford and like erasing their work ethic on like a resume or something like that. But you know, anyways, moving on. She spoke to ESPN and stated that she is fully recovered from her broken foot, which is good. She's set to make $5 million per year, guys. That's huge. Um, and what I kind of want to touch on real quick is that Becky Lynch is soon to be a free agent. So she can kind of use Monet. This is why I say Monet's contract signing is pretty like, blockbuster, kind of groundbreaking, is that a lot of the superstars from AEW, NXT, WWE from the women's side are going to kind of use Monet's, kind of use her, like her contract is kind of like the stepping stone. Like to be like, well, especially with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is like so recognized in the wrestling industry right now. WWE would absolutely have no choice but to sign her. And if they don't sign her, that would be extremely stupid. We would lose her, lose viewers, and then like, oh, that would be absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. But I don't know. So some of the kind of before we end the segment, some of the top paid WWE superstars according to Forbes was Brock Lesnar at $10 million, um, Roman Reigns at $5 million, Randy Orton at 4.1. Becky Lynch's last contract was good for $3.10 million. So obviously, from Becky to Mercedes Mone is a huge discrepancy. So, all right, that was my Mercedes Mone take. Don't go anywhere. We're kind of limited on a little bit of time here, but just remember that we have um, a little bit of Bray Wyatt talk. Becoming Immortal, and Peacock extravaganza documentary coming out about Bray Wyatt. So it's going to be pretty cool. Don't go anywhere.